I just do a video to checking out the new updates from Lightroom. I have had a quick play with them, and I quite honestly think it's going to be a bit of a game changer, especially for me with my headshots. I mean, there's sometimes so much stuff I want to do on bulk that this is going to make my life so much easier, so much easier. I mean, something I do with my headshots anyway, I tend to do like bulk on the different outfits as like I synchronize the settings. I put my highlights up, shadows up, whatever. And I'll have a bit of a play and then I'll bulk do that throughout the whole outfit because that means it's consistent. Every one that I pick is going to be completely consistent and they're not going to look like I've done different settings on every single image, which is important when I'm doing headshots that have to work together. However, I think these are going to absolutely change everything. So if I just come in here, I've just picked one of my normal headshots, really standard headshot, and I click up on the masking. It's changed quite a bit, but one of the things that I found really interesting was actually this bit down here where it's detecting people. And as you can see, it's now highlighted her in red and it's actually put her face down there. I still haven't tested this on pictures with multiple people. I think that will be really interesting to see how it selects all the different people. If it works, it'll be really, that'll be interesting. But if I click on her face, it goes further and it actually detects all of her features. And it's broken it down into face skin, which is a weird way of saying it, the face skin, body skin, which on her is just selected her neck, eyebrows, I can't even say that, I'm not going to pretend, but the white bit of the eye, the iris and the pupil, which I think is the bit that's going to change my life the most, lips and her hair. And it means that I can now create masks specifically for those elements. So I had a client just the other day who was worried that her kid hair always didn't look red enough. It didn't look red as it was always like neutralized in pictures. Now, to be honest, that's mostly down to whoever's been taking pictures not using their white balance correctly or whatever. Their settings haven't been quite right for that child. However, I could use this tool to make sure that the hair in every single image has that little bit extra warmth that she can show off that hair color. And that will be really, really useful. So I'm going to start by just doing the iris and the pupil, and I'm going to create a mask. I can tick multiple ones. So I could create a mask with all of these different elements in. But so you can see it's highlighted them in red. Now I'm going to just play with my exposure, just really simple, just to pull that up a little bit. I could even play with my contrast a tiny bit if I wanted to. And if you wanted to get really gritty with something, we could always play with our sharpness, although I personally never touch the sharpness on images, but it can be effective with eyes, especially. So because she's got blue eyes, if I decided to play with my color temperature and pull that down, I could make those eyes really blue. And same the other way, I could go with a completely different color, which wouldn't work for a natural headshot whatsoever. So for that reason, I'm going to leave that as it is. But actually, I quite like that. Now, if I use my little eye icon up here, that's quite nice. I think that looks good. So I want that to apply to all of these pictures in this set. Exactly the same setting, plus 0.84, plus 41 on the contrast. So I'm actually going to synchronize, check none of them, and just synchronize the mask. Now, when I do that, at the moment, it takes a little bit of time, not too long, just a little bit of time. I assume it will get a little bit quicker as the updates come, but that will synchronize in between all of that. But more importantly, it synchronizes the AI settings, so it looks for the iris in all of those pictures. Whereas when you've done this before and synchronized masks, losing my voice, it would normally just take the mask and apply it to the image, which means you could end up with like two lightened circles on the forehead or too low down on the cheek. And it just doesn't work quite as well, which is why I've never used it. So this is really a game changer because it means I can be really consistent throughout all of these headshots. Again, I do think it will be really interesting to see what happens when they do it on larger groups. If I could synchronize the eyes of one person throughout lots of group pictures, would be very interesting if it could recognize the same person. But you know, these things are built to be tested. I quite like the idea of pushing it to its limits, seeing what it can do, because this is incredibly useful as it is. I don't really need it to be able to do large groups, but you know, helpful. So if I click through all my different ones here, I can see that there is a mask and the eyes have been done on all of those. So now we've had a look at that, I thought let's have a look at something else. Let's maybe look at the hair. Let's pick an image. I'm trying to pick one with a lot of hair. There we go. We've got hair flying all over the place on this one, so that would be quite interesting. And so let's see it do its little detecting people. It found her. And I think, I mean, I don't really need to mask the hair. There you go. So it's missed a little bit up there, but I can add to the mask if I want to. I can manually draw it in, and it hasn't got all the little bits around the edge. Let's create that mask. Hair's a difficult one. I've always found doing hair masks in Photoshop a million times easier than trying anything in Lightroom. But it's something, it's definitely improved. Let's have a look. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so as soon as I raise it, I can see I've got some issues coming around here. That's not going to be great on exposure. But to be honest, I don't think you're really going to use this mask just to change the color. For me, I'd be using it to increase highlights, decrease highlights, up shadows, show a bit more detail in the hair, maybe soften the hair a little bit. Yeah, I think that's what I'd sort of use it for. As soon as I start using exposure, you can just absolutely see the wrong edges. Let's try our temperature. Oh, there we go. That's a look. Can really bring out that red. Not quite what we're going for, although you can't see the mask edges on that one. You definitely can when it's blue. As I said, I can go on the mask and manually draw in the other bits if I wanted to. And it's got things like we can soften the hair a little bit using the texture. Not something I tend to do very often, but I can see why that might be useful for some people. Okay, well, the hair one needs work. Not too bad. I'm going to delete that mask. And let's see if there's anything else on there that might be worth playing with. I think, do you know what? Let's play with those eyes. Let's have a look. Because I'm always curious to see what it does. And it does look to me like it's bled over the eye a tiny bit. So let's create that mask. I am not someone who believes in brightening the whites of the eyes. I think it looks weird. I mean, that just looks creepy. But I can maybe understand why we'd take the saturation down a little bit. Definitely not a lot, because grey eyes isn't a good look either. But I can understand why we might take that down and up the exposure a little bit. You know what? That's not unpleasant. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's not unpleasant. It's not done enough that I think I'd want to use it often. But if I need to, if I've got someone with very red eyes, I might try that. But yeah, okay. It's useful. It's there. I'm going to delete that because I do not need that on that image. It will just look weird. I'm not sure if there's much else that they're playing with the AI sort of features, but I know they changed the sky. There's pointless me trying that on these images, and they added it to subject, so it just creates a new one which should just isolate her entirely. I have done it where I've done pictures and I thought, do you know what? I liked that background in the studio. I like the contrast, but actually I want the background a bit brighter, a background a bit darker. And using the subject tool here, I could always brighten her up a bit, but I could also just literally invert that and it should just give me the background. I mean, there was a background option, but if I change my mind, I should be able to just play just the tiniest bit with playing with that background, even down to the point of slightly changing the color. Personally, I have actions that do all of this in Photoshop much better But that's not too bad. If I wanted to add a sort of natural tone in there, that's not the worst. It's got a little bit of edges that we could probably fix, but yeah, that's not too bad. Cool. Well, that's my update on Lightroom, having a look through those. I'll keep you posted with any others that I find, but I'm quite enjoying this one so far. I think the main thing that's going to be useful for me is just brightening the eyes a bit, because on some kids, maybe not her necessarily, but on some kids, I do need to like lift the eyes. But also, you know what, although they need to rename face skin, I'm not going to call it face skin, but the face skin bit could be useful, I can imagine, on quite a few. If you have got other highlights, maybe in the outfit, maybe in the background, especially with a busier background, I can imagine that that's going to be quite useful, just to lift your highlights, darken your shadows, add that little bit of contrast back in that you're looking for. But yeah, I quite like it. So have a go, and I'll catch you next time.